Hello and welcome to the Fletcher Friday Report. Today is Friday, May 29th, 2026. A little bit about Fletcher. Fletcher is an algorithm that I built that sends signals for buying, holding, and selling stocks. It is a subscription-based. I'm an individual investor. My name's Kyle Dreyer. I'm not providing financial advice. I was frustrated by my own lack of a investing plan and being driven by my emotions. So I created Fletcher to ignore my feelings and with the goal of outperforming the S&P index. The Fletcher Friday Report is a way to look at performance of Fletcher over the last week and looking at year to date as well, compare it to the S&P, and also just a way to mark some performance, just if nothing else, to satisfy my own curiosity. There are no signals, no actions, just info today. What a week in the market. All I can say is, wow. It's been a fun run so far and a lot of excitement, a lot of chatter. What are we going to be looking at next? What's ahead? I tend to look at CNBC a little bit. I look at Fox some, and some of the YouTube channels are intriguing to me, more for entertainment and curiosity than anything. I get a little emotional charge out of things, and I try to tell myself, you know what? That's not an action item. It's fun to watch, but I don't have any action necessarily. So watching them is more entertainment for me. Fletcher helps me to avoid getting sucked up in the emotion of the day. Fletcher this week looks pretty good. No signals. Those are coming on Monday. That's the first trading day of each month. So Monday, June 1st will be another set of signals. But overall, looking at Fletcher this week, up 7%. I'll take that. Since the beginning of the month, it's up 25%. So almost a full weeks of Fletcher has provided 25% this month. And year to date, 169%. And obviously, we're seeing a lot of gains in the market. And so I know that other areas are experiencing high returns. The S&P this week up 1%. That seems about average, right? For the month, it's up 5%, which is pretty strong considering the S&P is averaging normally what, 10%, 9%, 12%? And then year to date, S&P is up 11%. So very strong so far this year. We're not even halfway through the year. Looking good for Fletcher, looking pretty good for the S&P. But as I say, I always want to outperform the S&P. And so far, 169% for Fletcher, 11% for S&P. I'll take that. I like to spend a little moment just to talk about questions that I run into each week. This week, there were a few questions that came up. One in particular is, does Fletcher ever pick losers? And answer is yes, actually. 1 out of 3 picks for Fletcher come up negative. So you might buy, you hold for a period, and when you sell, it might be a negative number. And that's the signal that Fletcher sends. At some point, Fletcher sees that that's no longer worth holding, and you cut your losses and you move on. The winners, on the other hand, the gains that you see way outperform the losers. So you might have something that loses 10%, but you might have something else that's gaining 30. So that's what the back testing has shown with Fletcher. I've been investing my own money since January 1 this year. And so I'm looking at that in real time as well. And I can share those heat maps with you if you look at the website, FletcherInvestor.com. There are other times too that Fletcher leaves money on the table. So there may be a stock that is performing well and Fletcher says it's time to sell and it goes on to perform well. And I just have to, for myself, just realize that Fletcher is using rules. It has its criteria. We have to see that sometimes money does get left on the table, but that's the way Fletcher operates. And overall, if it's beating the S&P considerably, then I'm just going to stick with the rules. I had 3 separate conversations this week that kind of got me charged up, and this will be a little insight into how I think. In a nutshell, what these 3 conversations had in common were these individuals were not fully versed on what was happening with their retirement dollars. They either had a friend managing it for them or they had a company managing it, but there was no accountability. And I asked the question of what returns each of these people were getting year after year. Each individual had a sense of what their annual returns were. I would argue they were settling for mediocre returns when there are better returns out there. And that's in a lot of ways what drove me to create Fletcher. Just as a point of information, I do not have 100% of my holdings in Fletcher. I started the year with about a third, and it has grown to be more than 33% of my portfolio just because it's outpacing other investments I have. So this puts another positive week for Fletcher in the books. Thank you for listening today. Let me know what questions you have. Happy to address those at any point. If you want to learn more about Fletcher, the algorithm, go to FletcherInvestor.com. Have a great week, and let's connect again next Friday.